Are you ready to Kiwanuka?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go over the latest Michael Kiwanuka record, Kiwanuka. Michael Kiwanuka is an English indie folk singer-songwriter signed to Polydor Records. He released his record Love and Hate back in 2016, which was entirely produced by Danger Mouse and Inflow, who also did some production on Lil Sim's Gray Area. And this record was actually nominated for the Mercury Prize. I really liked this record back when I first listened to it. I first heard of this guy on 105.9.
Oh, yeah.
Northern Kentucky University Radio. I missed that station really bad. And I really liked his lead single off of that, Love and Hate. And for this latest record, Kiwanuka, Danger Mouse and Inflow are they've returned on production here.
Yeah, and this is, I hate to say it, probably the grandest album I listened to all year.
I think it could be.
Yeah.
Michael Kiwanuka is extremely sultry and smoky. I love his voice, and he just brings this sort of untapped, like, dusty soul into what he does.
Yeah, and dusty is a good term, because when he was featured on the last Little Sims project, the last track on it, he had this very, like, nostalgic, like, presence, almost like he was almost like a faded memory or like a ghost, which I found really cool.
Yeah.
And like instances of that popped in. He's way more present on this album, but it popped right in. This is supposed to be like a character defining moment. I read a little interview saying where he compared this to like a Ziggy Stardust like creating moment where like a person is defined. And I really see that with this. I see his character being more defined throughout this entire thing.
As a side note, this makes a lot of sense for the album cover, which I think is going on my list for some of my favorite of the year. It's very much so, like, it reminds me a lot of Pagliacci.
Yeah.
Classic opera Pagliacci, where it's like very character-driven clown.
Yeah.
Story. Yeah. I feel like Michael Kiwanuka kind of sees himself in that role. I like the portrait of him that is done on the cover of this project.
Yeah, and over the course of this entire thing, we get a lot of suffering, and I think that's the biggest idea behind it is how he's expressing pain and regret. There's ideas of like race issues on here, but there's also ideas of just like general, like almost existential suffering, like how can I be moral in a society type deal. Buzzword society. Joker. It's me. I'm the Joker, baby. But like it's very simple. Like these ideas, there's a complexity. Like when you talk about can you be like moral in society or can you just live with society, or ideas of like police brutality that are like huge. He takes like a very simplistic idea to it.
Yeah.
But it's like very just like he wears his emotion on his sleeves and not too much to digest. And it's still poetic, but it's like just very, just cut to the core of what you need to get. And it reminds me a lot of the last Little Sims project, because Little Sims was very similar. It was like she had these main ideas, but she was very simplistic about them. Didn't take too much time up and just like got into these issues and carved out her own niche.
That's what I like a lot about this record is like he's not trying to. Michael Kiwanuka is not a writer in the sense of like very symbolic.
Yeah.
He's not writing like these really big like overly complicated and like convoluted feelings with like a lot of metaphors, blah blah blah. Like he's very much so like an Ernest Hemingway type character where he just cuts right to the chase.
Yeah.
He just talks about what he needs to talk about simply and it's done. And I think there's a beauty to that simplistic nature.
Yeah. You know, it's like You Ain't the Problem, where he's literally he's just telling everyone around him that they should just do what they want and be their own person instead of thinking about dictating themselves for others in a way. More be you and focus on how you can be the best version of yourself, which I thought was really cool. You have moments like I've Been Dazed where he feels like he's just living in this fog and just has a hard time kind of attaching on to his surroundings. And you get that a lot in the track Solid Ground, where he feels like he's just weightless in a weird sense, and he can't kind of connect.
He can't find the solid ground.
You get tracks like Hard to Say Goodbye, where he's in a relationship with someone and he's stating he will never leave because it's even hard to like say goodbye as he's like exiting for the morning, or an example around the tone of that, where he's just like, he's always drawn back to this person. Final Days is him trying to like gravitate towards other people and trying him to connect to these other people, and having to explain how he feels. And that's a very hard thing to do because people don't really understand emotions sometimes, or they don't understand feelings sometimes. But it has to try to get people to understand that he's suffering, he's in pain, and it comes through. Another human being, I think is another like literal interlude where it talks. Is that the interlude?
Yeah, it's an interlude. He doesn't really.
It's the one where it's the audio clip, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then at the end, he says something about being another human being, which goes right into living in denial.
Yeah, so it's this idea of, I don't remember what the clip's from, but it's this idea of, like, when it comes to, like, race issues, it's like treat other people how you want to be treated. Treat them as the concept of, like, a way to end racism is treating other people like they're actually people. And I think that kind of relates into this. You get moments like the intro to Piano Joy. I feel like I'm just going very slowly down this river. The instrumentation on this is the keys are so phenomenally big. The strings are so elegant and tight. The guitar can be very like lightly spliced, or it can be very hazy and create this huge aurora of atmosphere. And Piano Joy, the intro, is the best example of this because it feels very light, like you're almost floating, and elements of instrumentation are just kind of carrying you down this river, this stream. And then it gets into the actual track. This also, starting off this album with You Ain't the Problem, Rolling, and I've Been Dazed, it feels like these tracks are just meant to be right next to each other. They flow so seamlessly. It just feels like a perfect combination. A lot of these other tracks do it really well, but it doesn't feel like too forceful. It doesn't feel like this is just like a one track album or anything like that. It feels very like well crafted and catered because it knows when it needs to take breaks, knows when it needs to pause or reflect on themes. And I think Michael Kiwanuka's performance on this is very different throughout the entire things. You get more reminiscent moments. You get very impactful and loud. He knows when to speak calmly, and he knows when to scream.
Yeah.
He knows when to project himself.
I don't know. Overall, I really, really like this record. It's extremely tight. I really love the themes that he touches upon here. I just think Michael Kiwanuka is an incredible artist. His display of artistry on here is second to none. And I think Danger Mouse, honestly, Danger Mouse has worked wonders with him. I had some doubts about Danger Mouse, especially after like the last Karen O project. I was kind of like, I don't know, like maybe Danger Mouse kind of losing the touch here. But definitely he brings it back on here.
Yeah, I think what he's doing this year with Michael is similar to what he did last year with Parquet Courts.
Yeah.
It's there isn't, you could look at this and say there isn't really anything new here, but it's more about how you project yourself and how you are willing to express yourself. More about than what you're saying, because ideas of total football and Wide Awake have been expressed before, but it was more how Parquet Courts expressed themselves consistently through that entire record.
Right.
And it's not ideas of existential dread and humility have been expressed before, but it's how Michael is willing to dictate himself and be super empowering and super hurt. He expresses a lot of pain throughout this entire thing.
This record reminds me a lot. This is a weird combination. One half like a Bibio sound machine in kind of some of the sounds that we're hearing. A lot of like the brass on here. I really enjoy. I think every track on here has some sort of really catchy aspect to it.
Yeah.
The first one is obviously like the way that the text just rolls and that driving guitar, and then on something else like Living in Denial, like that brass at the end of each phrase I really enjoy. I think it's one half like a Bibio sound machine, but then another half almost Lonnie Holly.
Yeah.
Just the pain and the wisdom that flows out of Michael Kiwanuka's voice and like into his lyrics. Like he's really not that old, but he seems so wise in what he's saying.
I really fucking love this thing. And I think I was just able to express so much in such, because usually I like to listen to things multiple times. This is one where I was able only to have the initial sit down with it, and it made me think so much in that initial sit down, and it just expresses its theme so well. Again, it feels really wise. It conveys so much emotion, and I'm excited to go back to it. I'm constantly ready to go back to it when I get a chance, but I was able to note so much information for this review out of just that one sitting that I didn't really need to go back the second time. I feel like I will continue to get more information out of this album with other sittings, but like it was really only the one listen that I really needed to get this much information across of why this record's so great.
Yeah.
Keep in mind those scores futile and meaningless. Right now I'm feeling a 9.
Yeah, I'm feeling like a pretty solid 8+ to a 9 on here. And I'm excited to see him win the Mercury Prize next year.
Yeah. No, we'll go to like someone random. It's always random. Sometimes it's good.
He'll get the nomination, though.
He'll get the nomination.
He'll get the nom.
Yeah. This year I went to like, I forget who.
It was Dave. It wasn't Slow Tie, so it doesn't matter.
Because Slow Tie had the Boris Johnson head and they couldn't do
They
it.
were just like, they had the award ready and they just snapped it. They're like, give this to Dave. They saw him do it.
Maybe they just thought it was Dave Chappelle.
Hey, wait a minute.